As Jake said, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Lifelike Apps. So we're the creators of around 10 utility and social applications. We have the #1 finance app in the US, Stock Market HD. I've been with the company for around 5 years now and overseeing all marketing and monetization. We're quite a dispersed team, so I'm out in Asia, all the developments in Europe, and the design and the CEO is actually in Los Angeles, but it somehow works. In the past 5 years, we've driven 25 million organic downloads across the whole portfolio. We've actually not been doing any paid acquisition, so I'm here to talk about some of the techniques we've used. So Daily for Creators, this is actually our top performing app. I presume most people are familiar with Craigslist. It's still the most popular classifieds website in the US. The website hasn't changed much since the 90s. They've also never built their own mobile application. So we saw this as kind of a gap in the market to build our own Craigslist client. So this was released end of 2010, and since then we've actually gone through the process of doing a licensing agreement with Craigslist, so we're kind of officially licensed now. So as with any classified site, it's somewhere where people can browse, can buy stuff, and can post listings and sell secondhand goods. So this app is 95% US user base, but we've grown to a pretty huge active user base now. And in the next 3-4 days, we're going to hit the milestone of 1 billion sessions, and that's actually just for one version of the app, so that's for our free iPhone app. So for those who are familiar with Silicon Valley, and our friend Russ Hanneman, he's very proud of his 10-figure status, and few businessmen ever make it to being a billionaire, and we think that actually few apps from an independent company such as ourselves actually engage users consistently enough to build up to 1 billion sessions. So like him, we're pretty proud of our achievement, but maybe a little bit less boastful about it. So 700,000 sessions per day we're seeing at the moment, and on average we're seeing 5 sessions per weekly active user. So users are actually using the app pretty frequently, and this is adding up to over 750 years of time in app every single month. So last month, 777 years of time in app. So how do we go about building a sustainable growth machine? So we think it starts with understanding, what will be the primary engine of growth for your app. So from Lean Startup, Eric Ries spoke about 3 types of sustainable growth engine, and that's paid, viral, and sticky, where you increase growth by increasing usage. Well, we think in apps, actually organic can be sustainable if there's a steady demand for a certain type of app, and you're able to get in front of those users and meet that demand. So we feel that all of these growth engines should definitely play a role in the growth of most apps, but at any given time there probably is one particular engine that you need to focus on, and you need to learn to master that stage of growth. And which you choose depends largely on what your business model is and what your stage of the product life cycle is. So if you know that your app is something that has a very low lifetime value, for example, only ad supported and no other monetization, then you're probably going to be focusing on organic to begin with. That was the case for us, and so we went about strategizing a portfolio which could allow us to really build apps that would target a high volume of natural searches. So we think that having a good growth strategy starts by planning apps which have high growth potential. So we've conceived apps that will have high reuse factor and that would have long shelf life, and by building ourselves on top of existing ecosystems, so apps that work with Facebook, apps that work with YouTube and Craigslist, as well as utilities which people might use every day or very frequently, we've successfully achieved that. So we realized that organic was going to be the way that we needed to get started. and App Store optimization was therefore going to be pretty key to us. But this is going back to 2011, so back then there were almost no one talking about ASO, there were no tools, Gabriel wasn't here to tell us all how to do it, so we had to experiment. And that really has set the tone for how everything is done now in the business, is experiment driven. So for a long time, running various experiments, submitting new versions every other week to learn what works and what doesn't. And we eventually cracked it, and we got to a point where we managed to rank first or second for a search for Craigslist, and we were hitting 20,000, sometimes 30,000 downloads per day in organic installs. However, things change, and the early days of the App Store, people were downloading their very first Craigslist app. So there's other competitors, but no one needs more than one Craigslist app. So definitely we have found that things saturate, and so we moved from kind of organic. We felt that early on we really need to try and grow as quickly as we could, so then we focused on virality and getting people to share things, putting signatures in posts so that went back into the Craigslist environment and brought people back in. But once that saturation started to happen, we realized that focusing on the sticky engine, how do we increase usage from our existing user base, how do we get them to use it more frequently and for longer, that's really the stage that we're in now. But the whole time we've been building towards this goal over 5 years of actually getting to a point where one day we can do paid acquisition and do it profitably. And so just trying to build up the average value per user, and we're getting pretty close to that now, and that's where we think that's the final stage that will allow us to really take off and grow at a far greater rate. So to do this, to build your own growth machine, we think the essential thing is to have a culture of experimentation and approach every feature launch and everything as a test. And so that means optimization never stops. Every conversion you have in your app is something that you can try and improve. So you can hypothesize what kind of change might tweak that, might improve it. You set out some variables, you obviously run a test, you get the results, and then you roll out a winner. And that's something you can repeat for every single conversion and multiple times for single conversion points in your app, and it's something that should never really stop. But bear in mind, as you do that, the performance grows exponentially. As you tighten up each step of that funnel, the performance grows at a far greater rate, and by the time you've got through and tweaked the whole funnel, things change, ASO changes, new platforms emerge, so you're probably going to keep going back through that cycle and looking at what new techniques are there and what new tests can run. So some of the key areas to focus on, everyone knows first-time user experience is really key, making sure that people are seeing the value early on and driving them to discover the core features that will actually make them come back to your app. So doing correlation analysis to see what type of behaviors correlate with long-term retention or early retention, and then how do we guide users to complete those actions sooner or introduce it to them, be it on-screen tips, is it a tutorial, is it just rearranging the UI, trying all these different things to try and increase the number of users actually completing these desirable behaviors early. Sales funnel conversion, obviously key for any transactional apps. Optimizing for App Store ratings, we've spent a lot of time trying things here, triggering requests at different times, for different segments, how you message it. So really just trying to obviously maximize the ratings that you're getting, and also the same for social invites and trying to increase that viral factor. The thing that every app marketer has to become a behavioral analyst. You have to understand what people are doing in your app and not consider your analytics as just a high-level overview. So segmentation is firstly it's key for your engagement and your targeting and personalization. But for your analytics, a lot of the deepest insights come from cutting your audience in different ways. So segmenting based on all different factors, things that have been completed, things that haven't, technical, acquisition source, all of this, but make sure that you're always looking at your experiments through different lenses based on different segments to understand what the impact is on different groups. So You have to use the right tools for the job, of course, so we use premium analytics, premium A/B testing, but if the right tool isn't there, you might have to build your own. So for us, a lot of the alarm clocks and utility type apps, currency converters, these are all ad-supported apps. They only make money from advertising. So we really wanted to get the most from our ads. And we felt that there wasn't really any solution out there designed for A/B testing advertising. All the different variables that come with advertising, you can do pretty basic A/B tests through your ad servers, you can follow advice from networks, but we felt that to empirically test this, we'd have to create our own tool. So now actually AppMojo is a platform that we're beta testing with other publishers, and we're rolling out as a platform and a product of our own. So a few growth tactics we've learned over the years. Really one key thing is how to integrate notifications as a feature of your app. This is something that you have to get creative with and find a way to make notifications more than just a marketing communication, something that users actually want to receive, something that makes it useful to receive it. So if you want users to opt in, you have to really provide something of value. Obviously, once that channel is open, you can still re-engage them with your marketing messages in amongst that, but make sure there is something of value to actually ensure that they keep it open. And then communicate that to them before you ask for the permission. So this is something Nick said, don't just launch the permission request on first app open. You need to time it right, and you need to tell them what the value exchange is. How are you going to use notifications? Why should they give you that access to invade their kind of personal space? But we find by doing this and actually talking up the value, we almost doubled our push opt-in. So we made notifications a feature whereby if someone lists something that matches a search that you did a week ago, you get a notification. So you can actually find rare items, for example, concert tickets, things that people are looking to snap up. And this becomes an immediately valuable and genuine reason to actually enable notifications. Experiment with calls to action. This is something anyone who does A/B testing, it would be one of the places you start. We found for permission requests, testing different things such as go to App Store, which had the lowest click-through, just normal things like rate app, and even putting rate 5 stars on the button. And go to App Store had about 5% click-through, and I think one of the reasons is that users don't actually realize a lot of the time that they're going to be taken outside of the App Store experience. So a lot of users, they might click through, and then as soon as they realize they're out, they bounce and they come back. So they don't rate it, and they've kind of interrupted the experience. So we feel that maybe that's one good option, because at least they know that they're getting taken away. But rate 5 stars, that actually had a 14% click-through, higher than anything else we tried. So that's good validation that users like the app and that they want to support it. However, don't just go by the click-through. So we first ran it as an A/B test like this, and we thought, wow, that's amazing results. And then we started to look at our rating numbers, and we thought, they're just not going up at the level that we would expect. So we then ran a different kind of A/B test and ran each one, only one for a week, changed it, ran a different one for a week, and we found actually the number of ratings were pretty similar. The difference was that people were confused, and they thought that by tapping that, they were giving the rating. So whatever conversion you're actually trying to optimize, just make sure that you are measuring to the final goal, because sometimes you'll improve one, but it doesn't actually have the effects that you think it will on the ultimate goal that you're working towards. Even just swapping buttons in different order can have a big impact. So just by swapping the button from being on the top to the bottom for the desirable action, we increased the growth of the click-through rate by 46%. So actually, we found consistently having the desirable action at the bottom works better, but we still suggest try it for your own app and see what works for you. So we actually had multiple versions of our app. So this was going back even before in-app purchase. So the model was typically having a light app and a paid app. So we've actually got paid iPhone, a paid iPad, and a paid universal app, as well as the free app. But that means now, if someone searches, well, we've got 3 of the top 5 on both platforms. So that's complete dominance of search. And also for our stock market app, we've got 3 versions, and in a similar way, we all rank quite highly for pretty important searches around stocks and finance. So If it makes sense for your business, consider having more than one app, but just make sure they're different enough, because Apple doesn't want you to have lots of apps unless the value proposition is clearly different enough to justify it. Personalization. So this is something that is super powerful for engagement, but not in every instance. And that's something, again, we had to test and see empirically ourselves. What scenarios does personalization work best? So a simple push notification, we're looking at, okay, what category of classified was the user looking at? We know their location, so let's send out a push that says, if you're looking for used cars, new used cars available in Los Angeles, click here to open, something like that. So we hypothesized that if we know the city and we include that in the push, it's going to increase engagement. Well, it did for some categories. For cars it did, for housing it did, but actually for others, a more generic, your area, that consistently achieved higher open rates. So for jobs, for free stuff, which is one of our popular categories. So actually, in these instances, maybe your area, it sounds more local, and we realized that different behaviors, they would consider a different kind of level of catchment that they would travel to. So rather than just saying personalization works best, let's run it for all of our users, we learned by segment which works and when to use it. This was an interesting experiment, so we were actually quite late to Android. So most of our apps are on iOS, only the Craigslist app is on Android. And when we launched this app, we decided that we were going to try promoting to our iPad users. And we kind of hypothesized that perhaps if they only downloaded an iPad app, maybe they don't have an iPhone, otherwise they should have got the universal app. So we tried this, we tried on startup. If you've got an Android phone, enter your phone number and we'll send you a download link. And actually 10% of users will go for this. So we've managed to actually successfully do cross-platform, cross-promotion. This is something we've not seen anywhere else, but it really works quite well. Using gamification, so we're working with a platform called Session M, and they allow you to allocate points for different actions, which then can be redeemed for Amazon cards and iTunes gift cards. We made this an opt-in, so at first we just introduced it. A lot of users found it a bit annoying, but for the 10% who actually opt in, they're some of our highest engaged, and they're doing all the desirable actions that we want them to because they get points for it. So maybe they're not the most genuine user, but they are actually some of our most valuable users. So they're doing things like social sharing, inviting friends, and these guys are actually some of the highest profitable users we have. So we're actually now targeting just users of this platform as the first step into paid acquisition because we know these represent the highest value. As I touched on before, if you're doing advertising, you need to split test and test things yourself. I think networks will give great advice, but they're all biased. They all support particular products. So we suggest testing different formats, different frequencies, placements, positions. All of this you need to test and do it as an A/B test. You know, it's not really accurate to run one thing, change another thing in a version, and see how things change. There's too much seasonality with advertising. So really just try and A/B test and do clean experiments that you can actually trust the data that you're collecting. And also make sure that you're actually calculating lifetime value. So, you know, certain formats, maybe you earn more in the short term, but it hurts your retention, it hurts your engagement. So look at all of your metrics and calculate lifetime value to really decide what the best ad mix is for your app. And so finally, explore partnerships. So cross-promotion, the Laundry they gave a good example. I mean, these kind of things where you can work with another non-competing app to exchange users, these can work well. We're open to trying tons of different partnerships, but a lot of them don't really result in kind of significant uplift, but some do. Working with Craigslist, just getting that stamp of approval has certainly helped our brand. But before we launched in Google Play, we actually got approached by Samsung to support the app. So they paid for us to port the app to Android and have it as a temporary exclusive for Samsung. Then we got approached by Amazon, and they also offered us $50,000 of promotional positioning and whatnot if we also gave them an exclusive. And in the end of the day, we probably would have got more downloads if we'd just gone straight to Google Play. So we tried these things, it seemed like it might work, but they don't always work out as you'd hope. So as my main takeaway is always be testing. I mean, we've been running back-to-back experiments for 5 years now. The CEO likens me to a mad scientist with all these ideas that I just keep coming to him to test, but some of them work, some don't, but for every one that does, there's 2%, 3% increases, and they all add up. But 1 in 10, if you suddenly have a 10%, a 20% increase in conversion, then that takes your business to a whole new level. So just make sure that you are actually testing and measuring everything. So you'll learn a lot of, there'll be a lot of tips and tactics here, but just actually make sure you're doing it data-driven, you're measuring it, and make sure it works for you. That's it. So I'm actually, as well as Lifelike Apps, I'm running my own agency, Absinthe. We're offering these kind of services to brands and businesses. We've got a team of 35 people doing this. If anyone else would like to get in touch and discuss growth, please come and find me. Thank you.